And then, so in terms of traveling, I'll say about 6 weeks.
Okay.
6, 7 weeks. We're away, right? Completely away from the gym.
Awesome. And then as a part of the mastermind program, I'm assuming that doesn't include that travel. So you're gone 4 other times a year for about 3 to 4 days. So we'll say another at least 2 weeks there. So, you're looking at 2.5 months of the year that you're able to be out of your business. Some of that time is vacation. Some of it's out working on the business, but you've got a pretty great team to be able to do that and continue to grow all the time, which you do. I'm Kelly Berry, VP of Operations here at Fitness Revolution. And here at FR, we empower fitness business owners to build and grow profitable businesses that they are passionate about. And we do that through a combination of our coaching process, our content, and our proprietary fitness business alignment system. Through those things, we provide gym owners the long-term solution to burnout. And we have been doing that now for 18 years, since 2005. Actually, July is our anniversary, so exactly 18 years. Pretty cool. So what's working now is where we surface and share what's working now, how it's getting done, and some best practices from our very own successful fitness business owners that we work with in our FR community. So in this episode, we're going to be talking to Javy Caraballo from EastieFit in East Boston about something he's doing in his gym that I think like many of you will find very interesting. It's about a topic, hiring, onboarding, training, service delivery that I know a lot of fitness business owners always want to learn how they can do it better, easier, and I think there's going to be a lot of really good info shared today. So I have Javy here with me. I want to give you all a little bit of information about Javy. Javy's dream of owning a fitness business started when he was 16. He started lifting weights with his dad, and it's been quite a journey since then, since his initial dream. But he has now been a gym owner for more than 10 years. It's actually going to be 11 years in September, so congratulations, Javy. His business owner's journey started, he actually had a business partner. They opened a CrossFit, and it's called CrossFit on the Hill in Roxbury, Massachusetts. And then a year later, they opened a second location. So that was a lot, two locations in 2 years. And that second location is now actually the business that Javy owns and operates as EastieFit now in East Boston. And he said, through those early years, there was a lot of some rough times and some challenges. And eventually, him and his business partner split. They each kept one of the businesses, which I think was probably the best decision for both of them. And so now Javy has a thriving fitness business in EastieFit. He's also a Penn State graduate. That's where he met his wife, Sandy. They have been married for 14 years. They have 2 awesome, and I think Javy described them as headstrong children. I've met one of them, not both of them, but it's Hoshea, right? Hoshea and Hannah. And so Javy's a great dad. He is also a member of our high performance mastermind group. He's been in that program for the past 4 years. He's from Puerto Rico, and he loves to travel. He loves to go to Puerto Rico, visit family, but he also loves to travel and makes it a big priority with his family. We were just chatting. He's actually headed back to Puerto Rico on Friday. So I think that's actually like a pretty good segue into Javy's topic today, apprenticeship, and how he has created this program where he can hire apprentices, train them, and make them into coaches. Because I think if you are like Javy and want the freedom to travel, you've got to have a staff that not only can like keep the doors open and the lights on, but that can drive growth and sustain the business. And Javy's done a really great job at that. Javy, before we get started, like how many weeks out of the year do you think that you travel or are not in your gym?
Well, first of all, thank you, Kelly, for inviting me. And this is great. First, like always looking for opportunities to give back. To you are like I respect you so much, right? So like,
thank you.
Like you invited me to come here. Like it's already a dream, right? So thank you.
Awesome.
And then so in terms of traveling, I'll say about 6 weeks.
Okay.
6, 7 weeks. We're away. Right, completely away from the gym.
Awesome. And then as a part of the mastermind program, I'm assuming that doesn't include that travel. So you're gone 4 other times a year for about 3 to 4 days. So we'll say another at least 2 weeks there. So, you're looking at 2.5 months of the year that you're able to be out of your business. Some of that time is vacation. Some of it's out working on the business, but you've got a pretty great team to be able to do that and continue to grow all the time, which you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned my kids and I love them dearly, but they're also very hard to parent. So not only the time that I'm away on vacation, spending time with them, right? And like I say, creating memories, but also like the time that I'm away daily so I can pick them up from school and drop them off at soccer or gymnastics, right?
Right.
So to be able to do that, I had to realize that I had to build a strong team, right? So that way I can completely detach from the gym and be able to be a dad, a husband, an entrepreneur, and not have to be tied up to the gym 24/7.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So tell us about your apprenticeship program. What is it and how does it work?
Yeah, so this is something that we've been doing for a while, right? So we opened the gym in 2012, and actually the first person that went to the apprenticeship is my training buddy and one of my best friends, right? He just showed up one day. He said, "Hey, I want to work here," and we're like, "Okay, I don't know what to do." So at that time, so the team sat down and we developed the first apprenticeship program, right? So that was a fun anecdote, right? So really how I see it is there's talent within the community of EastieFit, right? There's talent within the town, right? For us is East Boston, right? And we want to see if they're personable, right? I think that's a huge thing. If they can relate to other people, and if they match our culture code, right? When those two things match, then I know that if they successfully go to the apprenticeship, I can hire them, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them, because of the nature of the CrossFit methodology or the CrossFit community, were athletes before, right? So that gives me the peace of mind that I know these individuals, right? I have shared many hours with them. We have hard conversations about training, about nutrition, about sleep, right? So I know a lot of them. I know a lot about their lifestyle, right? And that relates a lot into what they value, and if those values align with our culture, then we usually quarterly or maybe twice a year we'll open up an apprenticeship inquiry, and then the people from the community, or if they know people that are looking to become coaches, then they get invited to fill out a form, and we can interview them that way, right? So that's a little bit of of the recruiting that we do and onboarding. Once they come in, right, and they get hired, we pay them, right, for the hours that they're here, right? Those hours are specifically agree upon, right, because it's going to come out of a payroll budget, right? We ask them, depending on their commitment level, some of them are looking for a full-time job, some of them are looking for part-time, right? So we ask them at least for 2 shifts per week. So for us is from 2 to 4 hours shifts, right? So between 4 to 8 hours a week. Right. So that's a commitment. And then we start them just shadowing classes, right? First of all, we assign them a specific coach. So that way it's, I guess it's easier to learn, right? When you have different mentors and you're trying to learn from different styles, they might get a little bit confused, right? So we assign them a mentor coach, and that's the person that they're going to see or they're going to be scheduled. And then on their own, right, they're encouraged to come to different classes, right? So then that way they can also shadow. As they get more proficient and they have a checklist and they can check the boxes, then they go from shadowing a full class to maybe doing the intro of the class, or maybe doing the whiteboard briefing, or maybe leading the warm-up portion. So we'll break up the class in specific structures. And that works both ways. That works for new coaches or apprentices to learn, but also it also works for us as experienced coaches to get evaluated.
Okay.
Right? And then we can say like, hey, Javy, like your warm-up is great, but you're taking too long, you're talking too long, you're spending too much time on the whiteboard briefing, right? So we can go both ways. We can do it both ways to teach new coaches, but also to hold all experienced coaches accountable so they can get better, right? So technically you start as shadowing, and then little by little you take part in class. The latter stages of the apprenticeship, I'll be supervising your class. Like I'm still the assigned coach. And then you, Kelly, as my apprentice, will come and then you will lead the whole class. Right? I will review the lesson planning, right? So that way there's not too many hiccups that you'll experience as you go through. And then I'm there for mostly moral support, right? Yeah. To cheer you on. Hey, go.
Yeah. So how long, I've got a few questions now.
Yeah.
So how long from start to finish does your apprenticeship program take?
Yeah, so we had experienced coaches, right, that have come to us from other CrossFit or personal trainer experience, and they do it in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right, because they have the experience, and then we can sit down and we can expedite the process, right? And we also have people who had never coached in their life. They're really good athletes, or they really understand the methodology of CrossFit, and they vibe with our culture codes, and that usually takes 60 to 90 days. Right?
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like this is a way, it's like we talk about in marketing, like you have to have a pipeline. This is the same thing for hiring. Like it sounds like through the application process, and that because this is something that you do, that your community knows about, it sounds like you just keep like a pipeline of people who are interested in being apprentices going all year round. Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, and it works just like marketing. It works organically, right? Because sometimes we'll have conversation with athletes, and they're like, "Hey, Javy," and they start asking like probing questions about what coaching is about, and then like, "Wait, do you want to become an apprentice? Because we can put you. I think like you'll be a good candidate." And then there's the ask, like we will like announce it in class. We really have kept it. I'm only done one Indeed campaign for apprenticeship, and that was specifically after the pandemic, after the shutdown, because we technically lost half of our staff that moved away.
Okay.
So we hired 4 apprentices at that time, but usually we hire like 1, maybe 2 at a time within our own community, right?
Okay.
For example, the most recent was someone who moved to East Boston and used to coach in Connecticut, right? At that time, he said, "Hey, I don't have a spot for you right now because we're training someone, and he already started." So he became a member, and he started training with us. That also shows us as a team that he's committed, to pay for the service, that he values what we offer them. And now after 2, maybe 3 months, right, that he's been training with us, now he'll be able to start. He's actually starting tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So then my next question is about like your current coaches that become mentors to the apprentices. What does their training look like to be able to like put them in charge of somebody else's onboarding? And is that an expectation or a responsibility of your coaches that they have to be a mentor in the apprenticeship program?
Good question, right? I have a straight out answer for the first one. The second one, I'm going to think a little bit.
Okay.
But the first one is we get evaluated. The head coach evaluates all of us. And then I, as an owner, evaluate the head coach when he coaches, right? So every 2 months, we go through the evaluation process, right? So we can observe, we as the leadership, we can observe who has all the qualities, right, that we want a new coach or an apprentice to learn from, and who are the ones that they're still are working towards acquiring all the skills, right? So if you're one of those coaches that you're still working to acquire all the skills, we won't make it more complicated by putting an apprentice to shadow you, because then you're like most likely your performance is going to decrease. right? Because now there's something else that you have to think about, right? So we only put apprentices with coaches that have acquired all the skills, right? And not only acquire all the skills, but they consistently show those skills in their coaching, because then we know that the apprentice can learn from them, right? And a little side note, like when I sit down with them and with the head coach sit down with them, he's like, hey, we're not trying for you to be another Javy, or like our head coach names Kevin, or another Kevin, right? We want you to learn the skills that they have, and then little by little, right, merge them to yours. At the beginning, there's going to be a lot of like copying or mimicking, right? And that's where I like to pair them with the same person, right? So they can be consistent, right, with that communication skills or how they start the class, but then eventually then that blends into their own style, right? In terms of the expectation, I only have, so I guess it's not the expectation when we hire them, right? It's not something that we talk to. Is say, hey, Kelly, like eventually you'll be a mentor, right? I think that's, I don't know if they'll be a good mentor. I don't know if they want to do that, so like, so it's more something that once they have acquired those skills, then we have that conversation. It's like, hey, there's a new apprentice, right? This person has the same availability as you, and I think that they can learn from you X, Y, and Z. So they're gonna start shadowing you, right? It doesn't add or take away, because like we just limit it to that hour, right? We have the head coach or myself that we become available to lead that mentor or that apprentice right through, right? So it's not like they're spending another 30 minutes or another hour. Like they're really just like focusing on that hour of their class to make sure that they're participating so they can get better, right? So that's the expectation that we set once the coach has acquired those skills, so that they can mentor a new coach.
Yeah. So I think I really like this. I think that one of the things that we see happen a lot for fitness business owners specifically is that hiring it's a big deal, because it takes a lot of time, not only to find the right candidates, get them trained, but it sounds like the way that you have this structured is you're never you never have zero candidates, basically. You've always kind of got people in the pipeline. And then the second part of this is, hiring, training, onboarding, all of that usually comes, with a new hire, you're not responsible for. You've got your team doing it as well. So, I feel like that's probably a huge advantage that, one, you're never really in a bind for staff, and two, doing this doesn't really tie up all of your extra time when it has to be done. Is that the way that it goes?
It's not a perfect system that doesn't exist, especially in business, right? Because like, unless you are working with ChatGPT, right? As I was listening to you, I thought about two occasions. One occasion was after the shutdown, when we get shut down, for 3 months, half of my coaching staffs moves out of Boston, right? So now I reopened. The blessing in disguise there was that we didn't open at full capacity, right? Because we still had restrictions. So I could still do the coaching and then mentor this, or like go through the hiring process to get this 4 apprentices. And that's when we hired 4 apprentices at the same time.
Okay.
Right? So that was the blessing in disguise. We were not back to like full, attendance. So that gave me some time. And then the other time was when we suddenly lost a coach who decided to move out of the state. And that coach was coaching like up to like 20 classes, right?
Okay.
So at that time, I had to jump in and do those classes at the same time that I was like hiring. One worked, the other didn't.
Yeah.
Right? That second time that I'm showing, like we didn't go through, because I was so busy. I was coaching 20 plus classes. we didn't go through all the steps of the apprenticeship. We like accelerated it. And eventually those coaches were not able to meet the same standards that we were hoping for them at the time that we wanted to. So we ended up having to fire them. Right? But the second time when I had the time, because I didn't have a head coach at that time, which actually in that apprenticeship before, we hired Kevin, who now is a head coach.
Okay.
And we hired him as a part-time coach at that time. And then we built him up. That worked out. That was a good experience. But like I said, like the system is not perfect. I think that time is something that you have to be aware of. That's why now that we have a full pipeline, we're not taking more than one apprentice at a time, right? Because if we take two, most likely one is going to be like, we're going to give all the resources and the tools to one of them. And that's not going to be like, we're not going to necessarily choose. It's just going to be based on time and availability. So that way to not take that risk, right? Now we just, at this point, we're just doing one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Important lesson there, like sometimes when you have to go off script for, when the circumstances dictate it, it's not always great, especially when you've got a proven method that works. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes you're just, have to go with what you've got time for. So, yeah. Another question that I had, how many coaches do you have? Like full staff, part-time or full-time, whatever?
Right now we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are coaching.
Okay.
And then the 8th one is the apprentice that started this week.
Okay.
I'm looking at the board because I'm this list.
Is that about the number of coaches that you typically try to keep?
I think 8 is a good number. We had we had up to 10, but that's including me and Sandy, my wife, and co-owner, who she coaches like maybe 2 to 3 classes a week.
Okay.
Right? So it technically is 8 that are more available, and then Sandy and I.
Okay. Do you coach like on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I like right now I'm coaching the least that I have coached in a while, and I'm coaching two classes, 2 large group, and then 2 semi-privates. And then, but that also gives me the opportunity, especially now during the summer, if someone needs a break or taking time off, then I can step in and support them. I think 5 to 8 is like the sweet spot. When I'm coaching more than 8 hours, it gets complicated.
Yeah. Yep. That's great. I think that's another thing that I think a lot of fitness business owners strive for is, coaching less hours, but also still coaching some, like enough to stay kind of immersed in the service, but not so much that it dictates your schedule. You're not able to work on the business, things like that. So it sounds like you found a really good balance there too.
Yeah. And I think that part of it is because like we have invested so much time, effort, and also money on developing the head coach, right? So now I can step away. That also gives the coaches, I guess, a less stress time to learn, right? Because as personable, as caring and loving as I am, they still see me as a boss, right? Yeah. And then I can develop Kevin, and I can work through Kevin, and then Kevin is the person that they work with, and that allows them a lot, like more space to grow.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been great. I think there's a lot of value there, specifically in the like treating hiring like marketing, maintaining a pipeline, having a plan for it, creating the awareness that people know there's the opportunity there. I think that's a huge part of it as well. But then, the system that you have after that, using your staff to train, it just sounds like you all have a lot of things figured out there. So it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like, if you're spending time to develop your staff, then technically they should pay it forward. right? And now, especially with, fitness, it's a lot has to do with personality, right? Like I always tell people, I can teach you how to be a good coach, right? But I cannot teach you how to be nice and generally care about people, right? So if you have a way to develop your team and your staff, then you should also develop a way for them to develop the new people, right? Because now they're not clones, or they're not trying to meet the expectations. Like, you could be like a really amazing coach, and that could be, as an owner, that could be, that's your passion. That's like what you do really, really well. So trying for the new apprentices to meet those expectations could be really hard, right? So kind of like getting yourself out of the equation and having someone else, like your whole staff that you can develop, that's what happened at the beginning before we had a head coach. Then they train each other, and now you also now have a more cohesive group of coaches who can learn from each other, who can have resources from each other. We have a great gymnastic coach, and that's why he coaches large group classes, but his training, like the type of training that he does, is mainly gymnastics. Like, when he reads about fitness, it's mainly gymnastic. So like, now I, as a owner, I don't have to be like, oh, I have to be the best gymnastic coach. I'm like, no, I just delegate and refer them to that person. So like, they'll learn better from him than from me at that point. So I think it's really important to develop the staff so that way they can pay it forward.
Yeah, that's great. I think we're good to wrap up. I did have one question. This is, you don't know this one's coming, but I'm just curious. It's always like to know, what are you reading or listening to right now that's helping you grow as a business owner?
This is interesting. I bought this book like maybe 2-3 years ago. Take Back Your Time. I can't remember the author. It's by a female author. Take Back Your Time. And I bought 2 copies, one for me and one for Sandy, for my wife. And she read it in like 4 days. I'm still working myself through it. But like, what we're trying to accomplish there is like, we are both very driven, career driven, but then, and maybe this is a different topic, right? But I will honestly, full transparency, I will leave tasks undone to go and get out of the gym to do other things. Sandy won't. Like, because she's so excellent at her job, right? So we were trying to, like, we're reading this book from a third person to try to find a little bit more of a compromise for each other, right? And it's been great. It's been a great experience. But I bought it. It took us like 2 or 3 years to actually like make the commitment to read it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Another topic maybe we'll chat about in the future, working with your spouse. I think we both have a lot that we could, share, learn from. It's, pretty common in our industry. So
yeah, no, and the last mastermind meeting, like I was wondering, like, why am I last again? Like, why am I last again? But then I realized that the last 3 presentations in our mastermind meeting had to do with working with your spouse. So I'm like, oh, now I understand, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a hot topic.
Yeah. And Javy means by last, he just meant he was going in last place, not ranking or anything.
No, I was the last person to present before the day was over.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of good insight to be shared there. So a topic for another time, but I think that's awesome that y'all are doing that together and learning and growing in that way together. It's awesome. It's what it takes.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I think that's going to be super helpful, and have a great trip again.
Thank you. This is great. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Javy.